right, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking how a massive U.S. trade deal didn't just get put on hold, it got completely blown up. And this one move could be the first domino that brings America's entire global trade strategy tumbling down.
You really can't get much clearer than that, can you? Those are the exact words from Malaysia's trade minister. Just an absolutely stunning, blunt statement that basically ripped up their trade agreement with the United States. No talks, no second chances, it was just over.
So that's the big question, right? Why on earth would you walk away from a deal with the biggest economy in the world? It sounds like a crazy risk. But here's the thing. As we're about to see, Malaysia wasn't taking a risk. They were just doing the math after a political bombshell in Washington changed the entire game.
To really get why Malaysia did what they did, we have to rewind a little and look at the deals themselves. You see, in the years leading up to 2026, the Trump administration had put a very specific and very aggressive trade strategy in place that totally reshaped how countries dealt with the U.S.
And at the very heart of this strategy was something called the reciprocal trade framework. The logic was, well, pretty brutal and simple. Either you face these absolutely crippling tariffs on everything you sell to the U.S., we're talking 40–50%, or you sign a deal. And signing that deal meant giving up some major concessions, like opening up your markets and changing your own rules to benefit American companies.
And look, this wasn't some small-time policy. The scale was massive. We're talking huge economic powers like the EU and Japan, key allies in Asia. You name it, they signed on. They all looked at their options and decided that giving up those concessions was a way better deal than getting hit with those insane tariffs.
And for a few years, this whole system worked. Countries fell in line, they signed the deals. But then, one single event, a decision made in Washington, D.C., completely pulled the rug out from under this entire global architecture. A single court ruling changed absolutely everything. And you have to see how fast this all happened. It's wild. So in October 2025, Malaysia signs its deal to dodge a monster 47% tariff. Okay, fast forward just a few months to February 20th. The Supreme Court drops its bombshell. And literally the very next day, the entire old system is gone, replaced with a new, flat 10% tariff for everybody.
And just like that, poof, the legal power used to threaten countries with those huge tariffs was gone. The Supreme Court ruled 6–3 that using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, in this way was unconstitutional. This meant over $160 billion in tariffs that had already been collected were not technically illegal, and the giant threat holding all these trade deals together just vanished into thin air.
Okay, so this brings us right back to Malaysia. With that old threat totally gone and this new reality setting in, their trade minister really only had to do one thing. A little bit of simple math.
I mean, this says it all, doesn't it? Suddenly, their choice was crystal clear. Option A, stick with the deal, pay a 19% tariff, and keep all those promises and concessions they made. Or Option B, tear up the deal, pay the new, lower 10% tariff that everyone else was paying, and have zero concessions. It was an absolute no-brainer.
The whole entire point of their deal was to escape that terrifying 47% rate and get down to a manageable 19%. But the second the new reality became a 10% tariff for everybody, that 19% deal wasn't a privilege anymore. It was a penalty. They were literally paying more to stay in the agreement. And this is it. This is the domino effect, laid out step by step. The court ruling knocks over the first piece, the big tariff threat. That leads to the new low tariff for everyone, which makes the old deals totally worthless. And just like that, Malaysia became the first domino to fall.
And you better believe they weren't alone. This quote from a top official in India just nails the thinking going on in capitals all over the world. India was this close to signing its own deal, a deal that included buying $500 billion in U.S. goods. Now, that whole thing is on ice because, as he said, the advantage is gone.
And it's not just India. The European Union hit the brakes too. They completely froze the process of approving their own agreement. One official said a key tool for negotiation is no longer available, and the whole situation is more uncertain than ever. Look, when this many big players all press pause at the same time, it is not a coincidence. It's a massive, coordinated reassessment.
So this all leads to the billion-dollar question. What can the U.S. even do about it? Its main weapon, the threat of giant unilateral tariffs, was just taken away by its own Supreme Court. So what's left in the toolbox?
And the difference here is just night and day. Before, the administration had a sledgehammer. They could slap huge tariffs on an entire economy, and they could do it immediately. Now, all that's left are these much smaller, slower tools. They have to do these months-long investigations into specific industries, they face legal challenges, and their main authority is set to expire in just a few months, right before the midterm elections.
Of course, the administration fired back with some pretty tough talk, like this post from Donald Trump. The message is simple. You better honor these deals, or else. But that buyer beware warning lands a little differently when your ability to actually enforce it has been seriously weakened.
So what should we be watching for next? Well, experts are pointing to three things. First, expect more countries to quietly follow Malaysia's lead and head for the exits. Second, watch for the US to pick smaller, more targeted fights using those slower investigation tools. And third, all eyes are on Congress. They have a really tough vote on whether to extend the administration's tariff power before it runs out this summer.
In the end, it really all boils down to this one simple thing. The entire global trade structure of the last few years was built on the fear of massive American tariffs. The Supreme Court just took that fear away, and now Washington and the rest of the world are about to find out what happens next. This is SenseTalking. Catch up soon.